All right, let's dive into one of the biggest, most important stories happening on our planet right now, the great energy transition. This is way more than just swapping out a few power plants. We're talking about rewiring our entire world. So think about this for a second. What's the biggest switch humanity is making at this very moment? We've had huge shifts before, like going from analog to digital. But what we're talking about today, well, it's even more fundamental. It's about changing the very source of power for everything we do.
Okay, so let's get on the same page with what we actually mean by energy transition. At its core, it's a massive structural change in how we get our energy. Specifically, it's the big move away from the fossil fuels we've relied on for centuries, coal, oil, and gas, and shifting over to renewable and low-carbon sources.
And I really want to stress, this isn't some small tweak. This is a truly planet-sized shift. Why? Well, the reason is simple and honestly pretty stark. The way we've been producing and using energy is the #1 source of human-caused greenhouse gas emissions. This whole transition is basically our global game plan to tackle that head-on.
But here's a crucial thing to remember. We've actually done this before. This isn't humanity's first big energy makeover. For thousands of years, we ran on things like wood, wind, and water. Then, boom, the Industrial Revolution hit, and everything switched to coal. The 20th century became the age of oil and natural gas. And now? Now we're in the very beginning of the next great shift, the one towards renewables.
So that brings us to the multi-trillion-dollar question. With all this effort, all this investment, all these industries being totally transformed, is any of it actually working? Is this transition making a real measurable difference for our climate? Well, the good news is we don't have to guess. A big study just came out in 2024 that dug into the data from 58 different countries over more than 30 years, all the way from 1990 to 2022. So let's see what the numbers have to say. And the results were crystal clear. The study found a direct, undeniable link between using certain renewables and seeing greenhouse gas emissions go down. We're talking about wind, solar, biomass, geothermal, and even getting energy from waste. All of them are proven to push the numbers in the right direction. But they didn't stop there. This is really interesting. The researchers also looked at what actually helps reduce temperature anomalies, what actually helps cool things down. And the big winners? Wind, solar, and waste utilization. But here's the real kicker. The study found that the more of your total energy comes from renewables, the bigger the positive impact. It's not just about having them, it's about making them a huge slice of the pie. Okay, so the evidence is in and it shows that this stuff works, which naturally leads to the next question. What's actually pushing this huge change forward? What are the big forces at play? Now, you might think the answer is obvious. It's climate change, right? And while that's a massive driver, it is absolutely not the whole story. There are other incredibly powerful forces that are accelerating this shift. It really boils down to 4 key drivers. First, yes, you've got climate goals. But second, and this one is a total game changer, is just plain old economics. The cost of renewables is absolutely plummeting. Third is energy security. Countries want to be in control of their own power, not dependent on other nations. And fourth, good old economic growth, the chance to create whole new industries and tons of jobs. Let's just pause on that falling costs driver for a second, because this number is just wow. Between 2010 and 2019, the unit cost of solar energy dropped by 85%. 85%! That's not just a small improvement, that's a revolution. It means that in a lot of places around the world today, it is literally cheaper to build a brand new solar farm than to keep an old coal plant running. Think about that. But, of course, nothing this big is ever easy. It's definitely not a smooth straight line from A to B. There are some serious roadblocks and really complicated debates happening on this green path. And this brings us to a really fascinating and super important debate. Are we really having an energy transition where new, clean sources are replacing the old, dirty ones? Or is it just an energy addition? If you look at history, when we started using coal, we didn't stop using wood. When oil came along, we kept burning coal. We just kept adding new energy sources on top of the old ones, and our total energy use just went up and up. Figuring out which one is happening now is absolutely key. So beyond that big picture debate, you've got a ton of practical hurdles. Our electrical grids are old. They need a massive upgrade to handle power that comes and goes with the weather. Governments are still spending huge amounts of money on subsidies for fossil fuels, which actively slows things down. And then there's the human side, making sure workers and communities from old industries aren't left behind and getting everyone on board with new projects like wind farms in their backyard. Oh, and we need a way to store all this energy on a massive scale. It's a long list.
So, with all these drivers pushing us forward and all these roadblocks in the way, what does the destination even look like? If we pull this off, what is the future of energy?
You can pretty much sum it up in 3 words. The future is electric. The general consensus is that the best path forward is to electrify just about everything we can. Our cars, the way we heat our homes, even our factories. And then make sure all that electricity comes from clean sources.
And to power that all-electric future, you can't use the old grid. We need to invest a ton in making our grid smarter, more connected, and way more flexible. This is where things like giant batteries and other forms of energy storage become absolutely crucial, so we have power even when the sun isn't shining or the wind isn't blowing.
So here's the bottom line. The great energy transition isn't an if anymore. It's happening. The tech is here, the economics are lining up, the evidence shows it works. The real defining question for all of us now is no longer, can we do this? It's, can we overcome all these hurdles and get it done fast enough?